Our next lesson is on rates, and we will start by talking about what a rate is. So a rate is similar to ratios. We just got done talking about ratios. And a ratio is similar, but it compares different types of quantities or quantities measured in differing units. So instead of feet to feet or yards to yards, as we did in our last example, we now will have things like miles per gallon. Those are two different quantities. $3 per pound, 1 mile in 10 minutes. When we write a rate in lowest terms, as always, we will write it the same way we would if it was a ratio. The main difference here is that you must have a label because we're dealing with two different labels. So without a label, a rate would not make sense. So let's take a look at our first one. The elevation of a mountain decreases 400 feet in 2 miles. So obviously I could convert 2 miles to feet, but we don't need to do that. If the elevation of the mountain decreases, it decreases 400. So that's 400 feet. And I'm going to divide that by 2 miles. So when I reduce this rate, I'll reduce it as I would before. 400 divided by 2 is 200. Still negative. Now what does that negative mean? That the elevation is decreasing. So 200 feet per 1 mile. So why does that help us? That means for every mile, the mountain decreases, the elevation of the mountain decreases 200 feet. So obviously we're starting at the top and working our way down. Same thing, the temperature decreases 18 degrees Fahrenheit in 4 hours. So obviously we would want the change in temperature per hour rather than the hour per change in temperature. So that's how we kind of know which one goes as the numerator and which one goes as the denominator. So I would put negative 18 degrees Fahrenheit as my numerator and 4 hours as my denominator. If I reduce that, I can only reduce to negative 9 degrees Fahrenheit per 2 hours. I could, of course, keep going and turn that into a fraction or decimal on the top, but we will talk about that when we get to unit rate. So for now, this is simplified as much as we can get it, which means, of course, a decrease of 9 degrees every 2 hours. Here are 2 for you to try, so go ahead and try both, then press play to see how you did. For the first, I'm driving 200 miles in 4 hours. So obviously miles per hour would be the way that we would want to go here. Miles would go on top and hours would go on the bottom. And then if we reduced, we would divide by 4 to get 50 miles. And we would divide by 4 to get 1 hour. 50 miles every 1 hour would be our rate. And our last, the temperature increased 20 degrees Fahrenheit in 6 hours. So it's a positive 20 degrees Fahrenheit in 6 hours. Again, I can't reduce it completely to get a 1 as my denominator, but that's okay. I'm going to divide by 2 to get 10 degrees Fahrenheit and divide by 2 to get 3 hours, which means there is an increase in temperature by 10 degrees every 3 hours.